You've mentioned the importance of being united and team culture. What are you doing to sort of keep that unity, especially when you got shoulder to wheel for long periods of time like this?
I think you just got to get people on the same page, right? And really communicate what we're working towards. That's the thing. It's all good and well to say this is what we're aiming for. We want to be a global brand, but how do you take them on the journey and show them what those smaller milestones look like, especially in volatile times like this? And so I think, for us, it's about, we created a 60-day sprint just recently. And so completely take your head out of that 1 to 3 year and go, you're still working towards that, but what does that look like for the next 60 days, right? You get through that 60 days and you go, cool, what's the next quarter sprint look like? And that's certainly helped massively. It just gets everybody on the same page, really, really aligned. I think also, it allows you to stop and go, right, what are the things that are not working? Business as usual. Is it really something that is required, or have you just gotten into this sort of, oh yeah, we've always done it that way, therefore we'll continue to do it that way. So I think those sprints allows you to stop and really go, right, this is what we're working towards. What are the things we need to really shift in order to do that, to push the dial? And yeah, I think those sprints have happened across all those years. Shit gets tough, and they're the things that always seem to work. I remember during COVID, they started locking everything down. We ran a 30-day sprint for nurses. Anyone that's on their feet all day loves rollies.
That is part of the brand element there.
Absolutely.
Too, right?
And so we did a campaign to frontline workers, particularly nurses, to sort of say, because we knew they were in jobs, we knew they wanted some love, and that campaign represented 92% of our sales for that month, right? Now, if we had not done that campaign, we would have been absolutely, it would have been really tough. And it wasn't just, I think a lot of brands went on sale and started pushing product to people that didn't have the money or weren't in the emotional, mindset to even purchase. Whereas we took a step back and go, who are the people who really want us? And, let's serve them.
Take us to one of those dark moments when you've been called into administration on this company of yours that's global, 650 million generated, 120 stores internationally, bricks and mortar. Yeah. Take us to one of those moments.
Oh, it was tough. It was, for me, KKK wasn't just a business. It was a family. It was my identity. It's my nickname. As an entrepreneur, I never, ever thought that we would be in that situation, because as entrepreneurs, we are very resourceful and we always find ways. We had a lot of challenges, just to name a few. We had, Brexit in the UK that we were dealing with. We had the bushfires in Australia. We had all the issues in Hong Kong. Retail is tough as it is, and COVID were just happening. And we were just about to sell our business to a Chinese manufacturer. That was really exciting. First, I didn't even want to talk to them because I was like, KKK is going to be my life and I'm not willing to sell. But because they had so much to offer and they wanted to open thousands of stores in China and we were going to continue with the rest of the world, it was kind of a really good combination. And we signed the term sheet and it was all, all the due diligence, all the boring stuff. And I was in Germany at the time, and one of the employees in the Chinese team, she said to me, I'm really worried about this virus. And I've been around for a long time now, and I've seen a few viruses, and I was like, it's just another little obstacle along the way. I'm an optimistic person. I'm also a healthy person. So I said, hey, let's just go and get some multivitamins and let's get on with this deal. And that was COVID. And because of that, to make a very long story short, they pulled their deal, which meant that the private equity who was controlling us at the time, who were waiting for that check, they decided to not put more investment in, which we needed. We were also in a very challenging position with all the things that were happening around the world. So it was kind of perfect storm. The day before, I was up all night trying to find a way with Paul, and I was, exhausted. And I just thought, I'm not going to give up. And I've been in that situation many times in terms of not giving up and always found a way. And this was just too big, it was too hard, it was too many factors playing at the same time. COVID wasn't just, for us, our business was such a challenge for so many people, with people who were sick and couldn't get to people. And, we were having to close most of our doors. It was just a really hard time. So the day we were about to announce it, when we kind of said, hey, there's nothing else to go, it's going to go, the administrators coming out today made me feel sick. So the day before that, the chairman, who's an amazing guy, Richard Forbes, he said, I'm going to get someone in to help you with media. And I said to him, no, I don't want that. And it wasn't that I didn't want their advice. I just didn't want to go ahead with it. I just couldn't even discuss it. And it was just so awful. After the media meeting, I was absolutely exhausted. And I cried for an hour with this guy. And then Paul came and he said, hey, I think you should just cancel that coaching session. And I said, no, I'm just going to walk around the block and I'm just going to do what I always do, which is like get myself together and go in there. And I did. And then I went home, and then the day after, I was up all night to try to find a final solution. And then I remember calling Paul, just crying, because I just didn't want to go in. I just didn't want to face the team. I felt like we tried so hard to keep this together, and it was so sad. It was just the most awful thing. So I'm calling Paul, and it's funny now in hindsight that he always been a person who captured all the moments, like the good stuff and the bad on camera. He filmed this in the car, and he said to me, you should actually show this when you do your keynote speaking. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do that. But now when I'm in such a good space, I do actually show that.
In doing a bit of research around that patent issue with a global giant in the fitness products industry versus your global company doing fitness products that you founded with Crank It Fitness, where you found out that the product that you have made from original ideas has now been called into question for trademark infringement in another country.
So I had not dealt with international legal issues. So it was a patent infringement claim. And this other company had 100+ patents on their product. So a significant number of patents across every variation you could possibly imagine. Now, over the subsequent 10 years, we battled. We were a little Aussie battler, against a big American, quite literally, against a big American corporation. And punched above our weight, had really good legal advice. But I do remember that I got the first legal letter. I was sitting at my kitchen bench. I didn't have lawyers for them to send it. We were about 3 years into the process. And I remember opening this very intense legal letter and nearly shitting myself, really, really thinking, oh my God.
What kind of things was it saying?
So imagine getting a kind of a 40-page letter, which is all around cease and desist. You must immediately stop selling your product, and every variation of threat under the sun in terms of court and legal action. And it was a great lesson in, when you don't have experience in something, it can all sound very, very scary. And then you go and see an actual professional and they help you understand the tactics that are being used. And it kind of takes all of the fire away from it.
So what was running through your mind when you first got that letter?
It was kind of fear of, have we missed something and done something wrong?
So you went straight back internal, taking
ownership
totally. For this. This is on me. Typical entrepreneur.
And I think, again, that lack of experience. So not understanding the tactics of business and going, this is a business tactic. This is not necessarily, it's not always based on truth or anything. This is just a tactic. And the reason that they sent that letter was because we won a massive gym chain off them in Asia.
Okay.
Across all of Asia.
Now they've got some pain. They've got a reason to be upset.
That's right.
It might not be because of that. They could have lost the account a million different ways, but you've won a gym chain and suddenly it's because you've done the wrong thing in a patent years ago.
Well, no, so we actually hadn't. This is the thing.
Well, that's what they're trying to allege.
And look, I'll cut to the punchline because last year we actually had to shut that business down. The reason for that was COVID hurt the business. So it was largely a commercial distribution business. So we were selling to distributors that were selling to gyms and commercial customers. So COVID hurt the business and it was sort of, stumbling along a little bit post-COVID. And then the same thing happened to this company in America. And they actually went into bankruptcy. So the funny thing about bankruptcy in the US versus here, and in America, it's often used as a debt restructuring mechanism. So essentially you can wipe off millions of dollars of unsecured and even secured debt and almost start from scratch. I don't love it as a system, but it exists over there. So this company went into what is called Chapter 11 and they got acquired for cents on the dollar, wiped off, somewhere between $20 and $30 million worth of debt. And got acquired by a private equity-backed group. And one of the strategies looking back was let's go really aggressive on legal with competitors. And so they went, full nuclear on us and took us to court. And I think it was the timing with COVID, the business not, going great. them doing that and then registering the debt against us here in Australia. A little bit sad, but at the same time, everything has a season. That was a 15-year season, roughly. Who I became through doing it, when I think about the trainer that I was before to who I am now, speaking on stages internationally, understanding international IP infringement law cases and going to China and setting up manufacturing in China and just the adventure.
I remember growing up and when I started getting success, and I bought my first Porsche, people changed around me. I got to the point where I was insecure to buy it at first. And I'm like, no, fuck that. It's not the materialness of the Porsche, but it's what it represents. And the journey and the struggle is what I was proud of. And I was proud of the fact that I'm buying it and going, I don't care what other people think. I'm doing this for myself. And that's a constant reminder to live in that moment, right? To be in that flow state, where it's like, this is cool. For me, I'm a design guy. I love the design lines. I have no idea what engine it's got. So I bought my first Porsche when I was in New York. And Dad was super supportive of. He was pretty much the only one, which I was really pleased by. When I got it, that's when all the shit happened, when I started seeing, sort of relationships changing. And that's when I was really like, oh, okay. I don't get upset about it because at the end of the day, it's a reflection of what they want in their lives. It's got nothing to do with me. And so, when I got the 911, for me, I looked at that and said, right, like what message am I giving to my kids? And the message is actually, if you want something, go out and get it. Don't worry about what other people think. So to be honest, I don't really care. Right? And tall poppy syndrome, it's certainly out there, but I think it's like when you buy a new car and you see it everywhere. It's like if you focus on that, you're going to see it. You're going to see examples of tall poppy syndrome everywhere. But if you don't focus on it, it'll come in front of you every now and then, and then you just move on.
I've had a long history. It started within myself as I was so deeply misunderstood internally, and I trod on eggshells my whole entire life until I essentially had my hand played, and I had to learn who I was quite literally for my survival. Like I was contemplating taking my life at one point. And when I started that journey of why do I have so much deep-seated anxiety? Why am I walking eggshells? Why am I living in jail in my head? Why am I creating all these scenarios? Like it's hypervigilance, right? So this is my theory when I work with people. It's like, I'm not a psychologist. I do study psychology. It's like for my own personal interests. Now, what if we can control the type of anxiety we experience? A lot of people will say, a lot of people who identify as quote unquote an anxious person, someone who I was once before. So I'm talking from experience, so don't feel like I'm attacking you. But we can control which type of anxiety we see. There's two types. There's fear with positive anticipation, okay, which is excitement.
It's like butterflies.
And then there's fear with negative anticipation, and that is anxiety, all right? But we can control which one we see by using our mind. And the way we orientate our perspective and frame up our thinking based on our own psychological context of how we see ourselves in the world. We can feel anxiety as a pulse, as something, an alert system that's guiding us towards acting or feeling connected to life, or we can feel it as this detrimental, like, shit, what's going to happen? Like, I'm going to envisage the worst case scenario and live completely identified in the future, and I'm going to miss my whole life because of that. So my work is in helping people overcome the mental prison. Like that's one of the key things I focus on, is helping them understand the nature of the mind and help them realize they are not their mind.
Yeah.
And then that's when the journey to freedom, both internally, emotional freedom, and also external freedom starts. It starts with understanding that all battles that we experience are either going to be won or lost in the mind. We think it's out external, but it's not. It's always internal.
Most people that I've had an authentic convo like this on have been on an arc, but they've had like a fall from grace first. They've had some moment, a loss of a family member, a public humiliation, financial ruin, someone's left them in the middle of a meeting or anything like that. Do you believe it's fundamentally necessary for someone to experience that in order to be able to find themselves and get to full authenticity?
I would straight up, my knee-jerk reaction is to say yes, but what I will say, I think for men it's essential that we always get what we need, not what we want. This is the spiritual perspective is, I'm going to say broadly, you are better for getting what you need to support where you're going, or maybe what you need to learn at this point of your life. You're better for getting what you need, not what you want, and you need to learn with it. You can't work against it for too long. You'll be humbled. I work with people who are very, very, very successful, and I work with people who, experience a lot of loss, like myself, and 1 minute they're on cloud nine and they're not. So I think to answer that question, men and women differently, I would talk, I don't know firsthand because I'm not a woman, but I can say for a man, I believe that trauma is absolutely necessary for a man to truly step into his most confident, dominant, and loving frame that he possibly can, because he has to meet the darkness in him to turn that into light, or at least know it, to know who he is inside, like the good, the bad, the ugly, so he can integrate it safely into his life and into society in a really meaningful way.
Do you ever find yourself in that state where it's the opposite of flow? You're in that kind of, I don't want to be here energy. What do you do to get yourself back out of that?
Work on the environment, right? Like, I think I've got a triangle that I've worked out. There's myself, the relationships that I have, and wealth. And so all of these three are super important. And the minute you don't focus on one, it will draw attention to it. So, you can have a great personal life, but if you don't have your money right and you don't have your family or no one to share it with, it's going to go to shit. Same in a sense where if you're doing well and your family's doing well, but you don't have the money to support them, you're going to be some issues. If you're fit and healthy and you've got your money right, you've got nobody to share it with, that becomes a problem. Maybe not immediately, but it'll become a problem, right? Whether it's through, relationships are very important for human beings. So that triangle for me is I'm always locked in to going, where does my life sit at the moment in balance? What I've worked out is that you've got to start from yourself, because that gives energy to everything else. Because otherwise, if you don't, it just ends up building resentment. And so if I ever get to that point, I'm just like, cool. All right, more ice baths, get into the gym, start training, meditate. Like I said, create a space for positivity to show itself and to have the passion and conviction to get back to the shit that I do best.
If you are not aligned to the purpose beyond the financial success of the purpose, then it's going to be very easy to jump off. Whereas, like, if you need to see it come to life no matter what, which is how I feel about the non-paying customer getting the treatment they deserve in real estate, as in tenants and buyers, that's why I'm still in business. But unless everyone involved in your mission is aligned to that purpose, and they're passionate about that, then it's going to keep falling over on the smallest thing. What do you think about alignment of purpose with founder and alignment with purpose with business?
I think that founding something and bringing something to life from nothing is incredibly difficult. And I think it's much harder than people anticipate, and it takes much longer and creates an enormous amount of uncertainty, requires a high risk tolerance. And so when you are not fundamentally living and breathing the desire to create this outcome in the world, it is just going to be too hard. I sometimes say to people, if I was doing this in like oil and gas, what I'm doing now with Coach Welly, I would have quit years ago. It may be much higher return on investment from a pure financial perspective, but I fundamentally believe that when you create substantial value, the money flows. One of my great friends and mentors, one of the phrases that really sat with me that he used to use was play the long game. And if you said to yourself then, this is what your next 5 years looks like, you probably would have laughed. Like, no, it's just whatever. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
And so I think we often have this sense that we can control the future. You can't anticipate the things that are going to happen. You could end up in a different country in 2 or 3 years' time. You could meet a different person, a spouse. You could get divorced. Anything can happen.
On a 5-year block, that is long enough for substantial change.
Yeah. So if that is the case and we accept that, then instead of spending all of this time and energy trying to control the safety of the future outcome, if you come back to the fundamentals of who am I in the world, what makes me happy, what's purposeful, and how much of that can I spend time and energy on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis, the rest is kind of going to do what it does. I talk sometimes about happiness fallacy, particularly in the Western world. We have this repeated internal dialogue that says, I'll be happy when. And if you ever catch yourself saying, I'll be happy when some future thing happens.
Yeah.
I get the job, I kiss the girl, I get married, I buy the house, I upgrade my car, whatever it is, right? Essentially, you're forecasting happiness to an outcome. So if you don't get it, that means you're not going to be happy.
Very easy to be let down, have frustration, and then resent something.
In addition to that, not only is it that bad, because oftentimes you don't get the thing, anyone that's been very wealthy and achieving lots of material success, you ask them, oh, did that give you the happiness that you thought it would? Almost universally, they say no. And so for me, and this was a Matthew McConaughey quote from his book, Green Lights, and one of his big speeches. And that was, joy is in the process of doing what you're fashioned to do. It's not result reliant.
I resonate with that as well. And the easiest way I'll say that one is like be, do, have rather than have to be. Because if I be the thing, then I'll be doing the things that is, and I'll have anything that's important to that being. Whereas if I leave it the other way around, when I have this, then I'll be doing these things, then I'll be happy. Well, if I don't reach that thing, then I'm never there and constantly in the gap.
Lying belief story, right?
Yeah.
I'm not valid and worthy of speaking. A lot of people have that belief, is that why would people listen to me? So we can blanket that as like so my masterclass I ran was overcoming self-sabotage and self-doubt. That's really the thread of it all. Like that's what encapsulates all of that. So most people get stuck on that first layer and thus never fully discover the power of their own voice. Let's just look at it as a hierarchy, okay? Like a triangle. So the top of the hierarchy, we have what you say, which is where most people hang. And then we have how you say it. It's your tonality. It's about my overall self-esteem. You know, that's the thing. There's a lot of people that are far less qualified than us, you know, taking stages with this outrageous, reckless belief in themselves, and they're winning because they just have that reckless belief. There's something else going on. And I think the way we can truly own our voice, not just for our impact in the world around us, we're talking about worldly influence right now, but I want the type of prosperity that feels like when I close my eyes at night and when no one's looking, like I am so happy to be me. I own my voice. I am who I say I am. And I'm completely content with where I'm at in life, despite wanting more. Like for me, that's what prosperity is. Waking up every day with that.
What's something that any one of our listeners and viewers can do or be or hold as an intention right now to become more authentic?
I'd say come into your frame. I spoke about this. Frame is our psychological context of how we see ourselves in the world around us. Particularly for a man, to get more authentic, you have to get comfortable in your own frame, which is, in a way, before that happens, you have to get uncomfortable. So I would say is don't focus on the act of trying to be authentic, focus on coming into your frame. And that for you will be very different to the person next to you. What does it mean to truly come into your frame? Like, what is your life experience about? Where does your purpose lie? Where is your edge located? And be honest about it. You know, you don't have to be the best. I'm not the most successful person in the world, but I'm true to where my edge is located. And that makes me exactly who I need to be right now.
So the question about the Rolly sort of evolution, because these shoes originally started with inspo from your now wife in the naming and the necessity for having it, of being light shoes you could travel with, right? You were in and out, I think at the time, UK a lot. And a lot of travel. I don't want to have heavy shoes in my luggage. Is that still the unique differentiation of Rolly, or has that evolved?
I think we've gotten to the core of why that was important. Because, and this came through as I scaled, right? When you're smaller, you become the filter of every decision, and you can like nudge everything in the right direction. As you scale, particularly when I lived overseas, like we were considered a perfect shoe for traveling, but it wasn't the act of traveling that was important. So like I started seeing campaigns of like, oh, let's do this in the airport, or let's do this. Like, it is not the act of traveling; it's why you travel. Right. Okay. So you travel for creativity, you travel for diversity, you travel for be exposed to new food, culture, art, broadening your horizons, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, all those reasons, not going through a fucking X-ray machine and sitting on the plane, 7B, right? But like, and so unless you communicate that vision clearly and effectively, people take what they want out of it. They hear travel brand, they hear the act of traveling, not the reason for travel, right? And so I think now we've definitely, what was always important about the travel was not the act of traveling, but the diversity, the creativity, the community. That's why it's called Rolly Nation, not Rolly.
Yes.
So that essence now is at the core of what we do, which is around being super comfortable and creative and being in that flow state, essentially. So like I always say, it's not, the shoes are not important, it's what you do in the shoes that matter.
What's your piece of advice to someone that's finding themselves, whether it's 24 hours of discomfort or 2 years of discomfort, something they can do right away to help them move towards something that they would dream of, as opposed to being stuck in the mire and just assuming they've got no way out.
Yeah. So I'm a true believer that you can dream while you go through a challenging time. And the questions for our listeners to ask themselves, this is just not if you go through a challenging time, it's also if you go through, really quite happy time, is to really always think about, am I living my dream life? And if not, what's missing? And the questions to ask yourself is, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? For me, podcasts came to mind, and I was like, I'm really scared of doing my own podcast, not being interviewed like this, but actually doing the reverse, because, English is my second language. I was like, no way. But then I thought, if I couldn't fail, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And my first 50 episode was so scary. Now I love it. I've done 350 episodes now.
Wow.
And what would you do if you had all the skills and resources, money and time to do whatever you want? Because most of us don't have all the money we need, all the time, all the skills, all the resources to do whatever we want. But what if we did have that? What would you actually do with that? And then the last one, if you woke up every day with lots of energy and perfect health, what would you do with your one precious life? Those 3 questions can completely change your life, the way you look at life. Dreaming is the kind of pillar now in my new business, because if I didn't do that, I couldn't have coped with the identity crisis as much. I just thought, what else can I dream about? What else can I do? And my new business is so much more exciting than my old business. I have a stationery brand, the Dream Life Store, which is all journals and tools to help people. And we have developed a software, so we print on demand. So we're not sitting with millions of dollars in stock anymore. That's an amazing feeling in its own right. We can personalize it. We can do all the things that we can. When you have a challenging time, whatever that is, that's where the growth is. So we're not learning and growing as much in success. It's an amazing feeling to have success. But there's a really great quote by Arianna Huffington, and that is, failure is not the opposite of success. It's the stepping stone to success. And I think that's a really good quote to kind of start this conversation, because I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about the challenges, because I had a few, and failures, whatever people identify as failures. My view of failures is actually, it's not failure until you completely give up. And I will never give up until, the end of my day. And I love a good challenge. It's something that I've learned to embrace, and really, even though it's really hard in the middle of everything, when you go through a challenging time, this could be business related, but it could also be health related, relationship related. And it's really hard at the time, but there are always silver linings, and there are always something to learn from it.
How are you being there for them amongst the world of pressures that go on as a founder at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, so I travel a lot, right? But my family came on 3 trips with me this year alone. And so sharing them and bringing them into my world, I think is super important. Whether that be EO, I mean, they come to the EO retreat, so they know every time they hear EO, they're not like, oh, Dad's leaving again. Yeah. They actually know what it's all about. And so, I think bringing them on the journey so they can see what you're doing and why you're doing it, and not losing focus in why I did it. Like, I started this business to create a future for me and my family. And if that were to ever jeopardize that, I'd just sell the business. Right? Like, I love what I do, don't get me wrong, but it's not connected to the job, right? It's connected to, I just want to be creative. I want to have a source of financial stability, and I want the family to be super happy. And so for me, it's just, I'm really proud. The thing I'm most proud of is the business I've built with my family, right? Like, I used to joke around and say, when I used to introduce my wife and say she was my first wife, she no longer found it funny as we got older. But I think I get it. I get it now. Like, I'm so happy that I built this business with the same woman and my kids, they love me and I love them. And it might sound cheesy, but like, I do it for them. And like, it seriously brings me joy, because otherwise, I was very lucky to learn from someone else's mistakes early on in my career, where I saw that they didn't have that family to go back to. With a broken marriage, kids, and their relationship was extremely strained. And they were really great to me, because I was almost seen as that child, to them. At that, it was an incredible relationship that I had with them. But that's not what I wanted for my kids.